"This line's for premium passengers only, sir." That's what they told him, loud enough to echo across the terminal. No apology, no eye contact, just a practiced smile of someone trained to spot the wrong kind of traveler. He wasn't late. He wasn't loud. He was simply black, in a tailored coat, holding a ticket they refused to scan. Not because it was invalid, because it didn't look like it belonged to them. No one blinked when the white man behind him strolled past unchecked. No one offered help when security was called just to confirm. But what they didn't realize, what none of them realized, was that the man they tried to shrink into silence. He could crash their entire future with one phone call. Not out of revenge, out of principle. This isn't about upgrades or seat numbers. It's about the price of assuming someone's place in the world and the cost of being wrong. Think this is just about one flight? Keep watching. If you've ever been judged before speaking, like, comment, follow. Tag someone who knows what this feels like. And tell us, would you have stayed silent or changed everything? The cabin lights dimmed as Flight 731 taxied onto the runway. A low hum of quiet conversation filled the first-class section, where white linens, crystal glasses, and soft jazz played like a lullaby before takeoff. In Seat 2, sat Avery Mitchell, well-dressed, calm, and quiet. He placed his phone in airplane mode, then folded his hands over the leather folio on his lap. He wasn't flashy. No Rolex. No loud patterns. Just a dark blazer, a clean shirt, and a calm demeanor that somehow unsettled those expecting something else. Avery had flown first class dozens of times before, but something about the way the flight attendants moved past him, glanced over him, or barely met his gaze, it felt familiar. Too familiar. 15 minutes into the flight, a young flight attendant named Lena stopped at his row. Blonde hair in a tight bun, flawless lipstick, tablet in hand. She wore the smile of someone trained to charm, but too rushed to mean it. "Mr. Mitchell?" she asked, glancing quickly at her screen. "Yes," Avery said, polite but firm. "You requested the gluten-free vegan meal, correct?" "I did," he replied. "I booked it as part of my upgrade package online. Flex Elite, meal customization included." Lena's eyes narrowed slightly. "Oh, She tapped her tablet a few times, then looked back at him with a soft, apologetic frown. "I'm afraid that option isn't available for your fare class," she said. "That meal is reserved for premium corporate bookings. Your ticket says promotional." Avery blinked. "Promotional?" She nodded. "Yes." "Complimentary upgrade, perhaps?" "No," he replied. "I paid full price. The Flex Elite package. It included this meal." Lena didn't bother to double-check. "I'm sorry, sir. The system's very clear. You'll need to select from our standard menu, chicken or beef." Her tone hadn't changed, but her eyes had. They were no longer neutral. They were dismissive. Avery paused. "Can I speak to your lead attendant?" "She's assisting another guest at the moment," Lena said quickly. "Would you like the chicken?" Avery exhaled through his nose, calm. "Water, please." "Of course." She moved on. Across the aisle, a woman in pearls whispered to her husband. A man 2 rows behind Avery smirked at the exchange. The silence that followed wasn't silence at all. It was full of judgment. What no one realized was that Avery Mitchell wasn't just a passenger. The Flex Elite upgrade he mentioned? He helped build it. Through CapAxis Global, his private equity firm, Avery had designed a loyalty system for environmentally conscious travelers, featuring exactly the kind of meals he'd just been denied. The $2,500 he'd paid wasn't just a seat. It was a symbol of commitment to change. But it had been erased. Not by the system. By someone trained to interpret people by surface, and nothing more. Avery pulled out his tablet and logged into his investment dashboard. One notification blinked. Pending. $120 million acquisition of Orion Supply Holdings. He tapped details. Orion was the parent company of Skylux, the airline's food and beverage vendor. He looked out the window, the clouds a peaceful gray. He didn't feel angry. Not yet. But something had shifted. They had served him a message. You don't belong here. And they would soon learn. He didn't need permission, only precision. The cabin lights remained low, casting a soft glow across the first-class cabin. Avery sipped his water in silence. The tray in front of him was empty, the linen napkin folded neatly where a meal should have been. He wasn't hungry. Across the aisle, a woman coughed softly. Her hands shook slightly as she reached into the side pocket of her seat, pulling out a bottle of medication and a foil-wrapped sandwich. Avery noticed. She was older, easily in her 70s. Her white hair was tied into a careful bun. A widow's ring still circled her finger. Her in-flight screen was stuck on the welcome message, and her headphones dangled unused. She looked like someone used to being overlooked. He pressed the call button. Lena returned, tablet in hand, now wearing the thin smile of professional distance. "Yes, Mr. Mitchell." "Could I order a glass of the Chateau Larocque?" he asked, gesturing gently toward the wine list. "Please bring it to the lady in 2C." Lena blinked. "For her?" Avery nodded. "My treat." Lena hesitated, then gave a short nod and tapped on her tablet. "Certainly. I'll process the charge now." She slid a handheld reader toward him. Avery pulled out his black titanium card and inserted it. The device chirped. "Declined." Lena's smile changed. "Just enough." "I'm afraid your card isn't being accepted," she said, glancing at the reader. "Do you have another?" Avery checked the card. "Try it again." She did. Declined. A pause. Then a flicker of something in her eyes. Amusement? Confirmation? "This happens sometimes," she offered. "People forget the daily limits on rewards cards." Across the cabin, someone chuckled. Avery didn't respond. He pulled out his phone, unlocked it with his thumb, and opened his banking app. A red banner blinked across the top. Security hold. Pending transaction exceeding risk threshold. Beneath it, a wire transfer status scrolled. $120 million transfer to Vanguard Acquisitions. Cleared. Funds held for 90 seconds. Identity pinged. Avery let out a quiet breath. The system hadn't failed. It had worked perfectly. The card was flagged, not because he lacked funds, but because his identity had triggered a verification lock. Not the white-collar kind. The other kind. The kind algorithms are still learning to pretend they don't have. He looked up at Lena. "It's a temporary hold," he said calmly. "You can cancel the wine." "No worries," she said, her tone cooling again. "We'll move on." As she turned, he noticed she didn't clear the reader, just left it blinking in red. Avery turned back to his window. The woman in 2C gave him a small smile, as if to say, "You tried." "Thank you." He nodded once. Then he tapped open another window on his tablet. A message from his assistant was waiting. "Final signatures complete. We now own majority stake in Orion Food Group. Initial changes will take effect by Monday. Should we alert the board?" Avery replied with a single word. "Observe." He closed the tablet slowly. They thought declined meant insufficient. But he knew better. Declined wasn't a reflection of his worth. It was a reflection of how fragile their assumptions had become. And now every meal, every bottle of wine, and every interaction built atop this assumption was under his authority. One sip at a time. The hum of altitude settled into a quiet rhythm. Most passengers reclined their seats. Window shades dimmed. The crew moved more slowly now, less about smiles, more about maintaining the illusion of calm. Avery remained upright. He wasn't restless. He wasn't angry. But he wasn't done observing. He reached into the side pocket beneath the seat and retrieved a slim leather briefcase, glossy black, compact, elegant. He set it carefully on his lap, dial unlocked with a soft click. Inside a laptop, a notebook, a sealed manila folder. But before he could open it, Lena returned. She paused beside him, her voice lowered, as if what she was about to say required discretion. "Mr. Mitchell," she said. "Is that your primary carry-on?" "It is," he said, without looking up. "There's been a minor issue," she said. "A discrepancy with the manifest. One of our crew members noticed the size might exceed the regulation for personal items." Avery looked at the briefcase, then at her. "It's regulation," he said evenly. Same one I've carried onto every international flight for the last 3 years. Lena's expression didn't change. Would you mind if we just took a quick look? For protocol. Avery's silence was answer enough. Still, she gestured toward another flight attendant, a male, taller, with square shoulders and a cautious gaze. He approached, hands politely clasped. "We appreciate your cooperation," he said, already reaching toward the case. Avery placed a single hand on top of it. "You'll look at it in front of me," he said. "Nowhere else." The man hesitated, then nodded. "Of course." The briefcase opened smoothly. Inside, a carbon fiber laptop embossed with a discreet silver logo. A silk-lined document sleeve with stitched initials. No wads of cash. No hidden pouches. No contraband. Just documents. But Lena didn't hide her curiosity. Her eyes drifted toward the folder. She leaned ever so slightly to catch a glimpse. Avery opened it. The first page, a non-disclosure agreement bearing the seal of Gulf Air International. The second, a signed proposal outlining a $40 million partnership for developing green aviation routes across the Middle East and Europe. The third, an executive contact sheet for the airline's board. The air seemed to shift. Lena stepped back. "See, thank you, sir." The male attendant cleared his throat. "It was just routine. Appreciate your patience." Avery didn't respond. He closed the folder, returned it to its slot, and clicked the briefcase shut. "Be careful what you assume," he said softly. "Sometimes the smallest bags carry the heaviest leverage." Lena's cheeks flushed, though she tried to mask it with a nod. "Enjoy the rest of your flight, Mr. Mitchell." They left, and Avery leaned back for the first time since boarding. His pulse was steady. He had come aboard this flight as a name on a passenger list. But in the last 40 minutes, he had been denied a meal, humiliated at checkout, and now inspected. And yet, the weight of the aircraft still relied on documents in his lap. He opened his laptop and entered a private portal. Account status, active. Pending notifications. For final contract with Gulf Air internal memo from Skylux board request. Approval to freeze partner accounts video capture from in-cabin CCTV. Avery tapped on the last one. The footage showed the attendant leaning over his seat, eyes scanning his case while murmuring to the other crew member. He bookmarked the clip. For now, the turbulence didn't come from outside the plane. It came from inside the system. The fasten seatbelt sign blinked off with a soft chime. The cabin relaxed. Drinks clinked, recliners sighed open, and a hush fell over the aisles like velvet. Avery remained upright as always. His eyes scanned the flight map idly. They were somewhere over the Atlantic now. 5 hours from Heathrow. 40 minutes from escalation. He was about to put his laptop away when a voice drifted into his row, not from the crew, but from across the aisle. "He makes me uncomfortable," a woman whispered, not as quiet as she thought. "Do we really have to sit this close for 6 hours? Her husband leaned in. "You want me to say something?" She nodded. "It's not a race thing, I just don't like his energy." Her words curled into the air like smoke, deniable, vague, but poisonous. Avery heard every syllable. He didn't turn. He didn't flinch. But he felt it. The room always changed when people assumed they were alone in their prejudice. Moments later, Lena returned, again. This time, she didn't look uncertain. She looked rehearsed. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, crouching slightly beside him. "We've had a small issue with seat assignments. There's been a request from another passenger that may require us to relocate you." Avery looked up. "Relocate me?" "Just to a seat a few rows back," she offered, already gesturing subtly toward the rear of first class. "It's a comfort preference. Nothing to do with you, of course." He tilted his head. "My seat is 2A. Assigned. Paid. Is there a problem with it?" Lena hesitated. "No, sir. It's just we like to make sure everyone feels comfortable." Avery smiled. "Just slightly. And your solution to one person's discomfort is to remove the other." "I didn't say remove. I paid for the executive silent suite, Lena," he said, his voice still low, still calm. "It includes priority boarding, a private cab space, carbon tax offset, And let me make sure I say this clearly, non-negotiable seat selection. She blinked. The price for this seat, he continued, was $6,300 US. The man in the opposite row shifted uncomfortably. His wife turned away, pretending to read. Lena stood awkwardly. I'll speak to my supervisor. Please do, Avery replied. And let them know that any attempt to move me without written cause will result in breach of contract proceedings. Immediate. She left without another word. Avery closed his laptop, slowly now. The sting wasn't in the insult. It was in the fact that the system still bent itself around the wrong people's comfort. Across the cabin, the husband muttered something under his breath. Avery didn't bother catching it. The message had already been sent. He reached back into his briefcase, pulling out his tablet again. A new alert pinged. Orion Air Compliance Flag Request. Your cabin seat protocol trial is being monitored in real time. Do you want to enforce Clause 4C? Passenger seat integrity override rights. Avery tapped yes. Behind the scenes, the system would now log any attempt to reassign his seat. Any manipulation of comfort-based complaints would trigger a full audit of internal passenger movement logs. Violations would cost the airline up to $1.2 million in penalties under a trial clause they had all agreed to without reading the fine print. Not his problem. Not anymore. The woman across the aisle crossed her arms and stared ahead, her glass of Prosecco trembling just slightly in her grip. Avery leaned back. He wasn't the one disturbing the peace. He was just refusing to leave it unchallenged. The air in the cabin had changed. It wasn't the altitude or turbulence, it was the tension. Subtle, measured, like a string pulled too tight, waiting to snap. Avery could feel it with every step Lena took past him without eye contact. He could feel it in the silence from the couple across the aisle, who now pretended he didn't exist at all. He didn't mind. In fact, it focused him. He tapped open his tablet again, ready to respond to an urgent investor message, when the screen froze. No connection. He refreshed. Wi-Fi premium access. Not authorized for this fare class. That made him pause. Avery Mitchell had used this same airline's premium network dozens of times. In fact, he didn't just use it. He owned it. Literally. Skywave Tech, the in-flight connectivity provider currently routing all network access on this aircraft, was a portfolio company of Capaxis Global. Avery's firm had backed them in Series C funding, secured infrastructure in 10 countries, and currently held a 31% controlling interest. He had personally negotiated the distribution agreement that determined access tiers. And yet here he was. Blocked. He tapped the help prompt. A chat window opened. Access restricted. Your ticket does not include corporate class network rights. He didn't even laugh. He just took a screenshot. Then he pulled up a secondary console, a private admin app Skywave engineers used for diagnostics. He entered his credentials. Admin override activated. A dashboard popped up. Network load. 67% top users. Cabin C row 7 active sessions. 143 flagged accounts. One that account was his. Flag by name. Avery narrowed his eyes. The ID code didn't match any automated policy. This wasn't a software glitch. This was a manual block. Someone on board had submitted a restriction. He traced the flag's origin through metadata logs. The request came from a cabin terminal device, Model L3 AirTouch, the type used by flight supervisors. He leaned back in his seat. So they were trying to silence him now. Digitally. It was bold, but not very smart. He switched to the back end of the network interface and issued one command. Suspend current access hierarchy. Elevate Class Z access for passenger ID, AM. Instantly, full connectivity returned. The Wi-Fi indicator blinked green. Below that, another alert appeared. Do you wish to initiate contract reevaluation? Avery hesitated, then tapped yes. Immediate suspension pending review. Within 60 seconds, Skywave's internal system logged the change, froze new connections, and queued a legal notification to the airline's operations manager. By the time any crew member noticed, every first-class passenger would lose streaming access, and every middle manager would receive a compliance flag. That was the cost of pretending ownership was invisible. Avery composed a quick internal memo, effective immediately. Suspend auto-renewal of Orion's in-flight connectivity contract. Initiate penalty clause, review per second. 9.02 Breach of neutral service protocols. He hit send. A few rows back, a man groaned as his streaming video cut out. Another complained quietly. A woman called for assistance. Lena hurried to a terminal near the galley, tapping furiously. A red prompt appeared. Admin override, locked. No access. She looked up, confused. Avery sipped his water. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't issue threats. He didn't have to. Ownership whispered louder than outrage. And tonight, the network didn't belong to the airline. It belonged to him. The cabin lights dimmed again, signaling the halfway mark of the flight. A soft lull spread among the passengers. Most were watching movies, drifting to sleep, or scrolling through emails with frustrated sighs now that the Wi-Fi had mysteriously slowed to a crawl. Avery remained still, focused. He wasn't reacting anymore. He was listening. Through his tablet, now fully reconnected and running on admin-level priority, he opened a mirrored backend from Skywave's partner tool, an experimental feature still in testing. It allowed key shareholders to monitor live systems performance across commercial flights. But tonight, Avery wasn't interested in bandwidth. He was interested in people. One module, designed for internal staff communication, displayed flight crew activity across terminals. Cabin logs, task assignments, and, as of a few minutes ago, one low-bandwidth video feed from a personal device. It was a private, crew-only livestream. He tapped in. On screen, a blurry front-facing video of a crew member, clearly unaware they were being observed outside their internal network. She was seated at the rear galley, venting into the lens of her phone with the casual carelessness of someone who thinks no one important is watching. He's still sitting up there in two, like he owns the plane, she said, chewing gum. One of those passengers who books with credit card points and expects filet mignon. I swear if I hear gluten-free one more time, off-screen, another voice chuckled. Didn't he try to buy a drink for someone with a declined card? Yup. Had the nerve to order for someone else, she smirked. I flagged him. He's on the meal scavenger list now. They both laughed. Avery froze the video and saved a copy. They thought they were anonymous. They thought their assumptions were clever. They had no idea who was watching. He switched tabs and logged into CapAccess's loyalty infrastructure dashboard, built to service over 22 million active members. Avery had greenlit the creation of the Loyalty Miles premium system himself. Tier structures, point redemption ratios, corporate override access. He didn't just manage it. He designed it. From his seat, he issued a Level 2 administrative freeze. Suspend dynamic loyalty redemptions for all Orion Air accounts flagged under Code 9C. Discretionary bias indicators. The system hesitated, processing. Then flashed green. Effective immediately, 6,218 accounts were frozen. That included meal upgrades, lounge access, early boarding, all paused pending audit. Avery took a sip of water, as if it were a toast. He wasn't done. He opened an internal messaging line to the Loyalty Partnerships Department. It was routed directly to the VP of Customer Strategy. Run real-time behavior analysis on first-class bookings over the last 90 days. Cross-reference any account flagged with passenger behavior notes by crew. Isolate patterns by race, gender, and fare class. Prepare data for escalation to DOT. This is a formal trigger under our anti-discrimination audit clause. He hit send. Across the cabin, the crew chat pinged with the first of many silent alerts. Loyalty tier glitches. Account downgrades. Red error messages where gold stars used to be. And none of them knew why. The woman in 2C noticed first. Her drink never arrived. Then another man grumbled that his upgrade access had disappeared from his app. Whispers started. Confusion spread. But Avery sat in silence. He wasn't angry anymore. He was simply applying the same scrutiny they had applied to him. except his version came with numbers, metrics, and measurable consequences. Some people think loyalty is about rewards. He knew better. Loyalty is leverage. And tonight, it was being used to full effect. By now, the hush in first class had shifted. Not a comfortable quiet, but a quiet of suspicion. An invisible ripple had passed through the network. Loyalty perks gone. Wi-Fi inconsistent. Beverage carts rerouted. Crew glances sharper. Something was happening. Avery knew exactly what. As he leaned back, arms folded, his tablet pulsed again. Another silent ping, this time from a restricted network. It wasn't Skywave Tech or Capaxis. It was Sentinel Core, the AI-based passenger management system used by most major U.S. airlines. A system designed to learn passenger behavior, flag anomalies, and escalate security risks using predictive modeling. The same system Avery had helped fund in its infancy. Capaxis held 22% equity in Sentinel Core. And yet tonight, he'd just been flagged. Red. Code 37C. Behavioral escalation, noncompliant/disruptive passenger. The tag had been manually entered. Location log. Cabin, a terminal station device 17. ID L.Maxwell. Avery's eyes narrowed. L. Maxwell. Lena's supervisor. He'd seen him, graying temples, confident gait. Headset always on. They weren't just watching him now. They were documenting him. Quietly moving him into the problem file. He tapped deeper. The note read, "Passenger continues to challenge crew decisions. Repeated refusals to follow suggested accommodations. Elevated risk for future noncompliance. Recommends silent surveillance." Below it, 3 crew members had already confirmed with quick marks. Avery tapped copy. Then he did something Sentinel Core's designers never imagined a passenger would do. He opened the back-end governance panel. Access. Shareholder level full disclosure mode enabled. The red tag they gave him? It was now mirrored onto Maxwell's account, flagged as Supervisor Abuse of Surveillance Protocol. Unauthorized risk assignment. Pending ethical breach inquiry. He added supporting video evidence. The live stream from Chapter 6. The denial of meal service from Chapter 1. The network restriction from Chapter 5. One by one, they stacked. He also inserted a cross-reference clause. Sentinel Core's ethics charter, signed by every executive, which prohibited tagging based on nonviolent disputes or socioeconomic assumptions. Then came the final stroke. Avery toggled a switch labeled Contractual Retaliation Trigger Active Monitoring Client Violation. The clause was obscure, buried in Capaxis's secondary agreement with Sentinel Core. But once activated, it would automatically suspend their license to operate predictive flagging tools across every participating airline, if even one confirmed abuse case reached the review board. Which meant the tag they gave him would now expose the system that tried to bury him. He sat back, tablet dimming. Across the cabin, Maxwell stared at his own console. Something had changed. The red flags he tried to assign weren't sticking. In fact, they were bouncing, coming back to him. He tapped again. Still red. Now his name glowed. Maxwell looked up. His eyes scanned the cabin. When they landed on Avery, he froze. Avery simply nodded once. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't wave his arms. He didn't demand respect. He just pressed a button, and the system did the rest. Some people think silence means surrender. But in the world Avery Mitchell operated in, silence was strategy. And his strategy had just gone live. The cabin lights shifted once more, this time into the pre-landing hue, a soft golden wash designed to coax passengers gently back into the world. But Avery never left it. His tablet now displayed 4 internal dashboards simultaneously. Loyalty program, suspended. Wi-Fi contract, nullified. Crew misconduct, flagged. Supervisor, red tagged. It was a digital domino line, tipping faster now. He had almost finished compiling the full incident package for legal escalation when a new message popped onto the screen. Subject, recovered item TSA station, gate C17. Avery blinked. He hadn't checked his second carry-on in hours. It had been safely stored in the overhead bin. Or so he thought. He called Lena over, not with bitterness, just precision. "My document bag," he said calmly. "The black portfolio. It's missing." She blinked. "Did you leave it in the lavatory?" "No," he replied. "I placed it directly above seat 2 when I boarded." Lena frowned. "I'll ask the crew." She returned 10 minutes later with the portfolio in hand. It was damp, edges curled, zipper slightly broken. A thin smear of something, coffee or oil, streaked the front corner. "We found it near the service station at the back," she said quickly. "Someone may have mistaken it for trash." It wasn't tagged. Avery accepted it, silent. He unzipped it slowly. Inside, chaos. Pages creased and bent. 2 folders had been unsealed. A USB drive was gone. And worse, his signature portfolio sheet was soaked, the ink bleeding through financial columns that were supposed to remain confidential until the following morning. He set the bag on his lap and pulled out the one document that still held shape. A draft copy of an investment framework. $85 million in Series B funding to Horizon Flight, an electric aviation initiative co-sponsored by the UAE, with matching funds from the European Green Transit Coalition. Next to it was a government memo labeled Classified Draft, Bilateral Tech Partnership, Renewable Air Infrastructure. He checked the time. That document was scheduled for review by 2 sovereign funds in exactly 7 hours. Now it was unreadable, unusable, and, because of the classification clause, untransmittable once damaged. The penalty? Not just the potential collapse of the deal, but a loss of exclusivity rights and a direct forfeiture of projected ROI margins worth $1.5 million. He clenched the folder, not because of the money, but because someone saw a black man with a polished case and assumed it couldn't matter. He flipped open his phone and messaged his executive team. Activate contingency pathway. Reroute Horizon Flight presentation to Dubai office. Submit public-facing dossier only. Scrap original. Prepare damages log. Then he added, file internal claim for negligence at JFK Terminal TSA and Orion Ground Services. Discrimination vector, item profiling. He paused, added one more sentence. Label this as Phase 2. Across the aisle, Maxwell was still scrolling his frozen console. Lena stood near the galley, whispering to another crew member, eyes occasionally darting toward 2A. The atmosphere was thick, not tense, but aware. They had played their hand, and now every careless move was evidence. The folder they tossed? It wasn't paper. It was leverage. And Avery Mitchell never wasted leverage. Avery sat still, the folder now resting on the seat beside him, creased, stained, and dangerous in ways the crew hadn't begun to understand. The aircraft began its slow descent. Seat belts clicked. Screens dimmed. Crew announcements returned, now tinged with forced warmth, as if they could rewrite the past 6 hours in the final 15 minutes. They couldn't. Avery's phone buzzed. A push alert from a media aggregator. First-class fraud? Passenger denied meal causes seen midair, trending now. He tapped in. A grainy vertical video played. A 30-second clip captured sometime during the first hour of the flight, when Avery had politely asked about his meal. The angle was poor, taken from a few rows back, zoomed in through 2 headrests. No sound, just subtitles overlaid in bold yellow. Another one demanding luxury without paying for it, a chuckle in the background. The woman across the aisle could be seen whispering. Lena's face flashed briefly in frame. Avery appeared calm, head tilted slightly, lips moving in what was clearly a reasoned request. And yet the comment section? A firestorm. Entitled much? Bet he used points to sneak in. Luxury doesn't mean free stuff, bro. This is why tickets cost more these days. It was easy, Avery thought, to make someone look entitled when you stripped away their voice. But the mistake was that they'd posted it publicly. He didn't waste time. He opened a secure portal into Cap Access Media, the internal content acquisition branch of his firm. He sent the link and flagged it for immediate rights buyout. Within 10 minutes, the original video was purchased for $100,000 and removed from public platforms. But it wasn't buried. It was repurposed. He sent it to the Nexus PR division with a new brief. Campaign, we belong here. Take the footage. Don't clean it up. Overlay the real captions. Show the calm. The refusal to escalate. The power and presence. Target, global distribution. Launch, now. Tagline, stillness isn't weakness. It's resistance. In under 2 hours, the video relaunched with a new narrative. It hit 12 million views overnight. CNN, Bloomberg, and Vox picked it up, not as a scandal, but as a case study. How misjudgment travels faster than truth until truth buys the microphone. The twist? The woman in 2C, the one Avery had tried to buy wine for, commented beneath the re-uploaded version. I was there. He was the only person who showed me kindness that entire flight. The crew didn't offer me water until he spoke up. Let the record show, I saw who mattered. Avery leaned back in his seat. They had tried to use visibility as a weapon, a public shaming. But they forgot. He owned the lens now. Across the aisle, Maxwell scrolled his phone in growing panic. Another crew member whispered urgently in his ear. Lena's face was pale. Somewhere above the clouds, power had changed hands, and the world had noticed. The seatbelt sign chimed on. Descent began. But what fell hardest wasn't the plane. It was the illusion of control. The wheels kissed the tarmac with a soft thud. A subtle bounce. Then a smooth deceleration. From the outside, it was a routine landing. Inside, it was anything but. The silence in first class was different now. Still, but electric. Not tension. Not fear. Something else. A kind of waiting. The seatbelt sign dinged off. Avery remained seated. Not in defiance. In precision. He pulled out his phone. No missed calls. No new messages. Just one scheduled draft, time to send at 11:01 a.m., precisely 1 minute after landing. He tapped send. The email traveled faster than any plane. Subject: withdrawal of investment Orion Air. It went to the CEO of Orion, the CFO, the Global Expansion Committee, and every stakeholder tied to Project Horizon 2026. Effective immediately, CapAccess Global is withdrawing all funding and sponsorship for Orion Air's international growth programs. This includes previously pledged capital to airport partnerships in Frankfurt, Doha, and Seoul. The reason? Verified breaches in ethical passenger treatment, digital misconduct, and loyalty manipulation. The undersigned reserves the right to publicize this decision with full supporting evidence. Signed, Avery Mitchell, Chairman, CapAccess Global Board Principal, Nexus Technologies Strategic Advisor. Horizon Flight, he looked up from the screen. The captain made the final announcement, voice calm. But the moment he stopped speaking, a woman too rose up, opened her phone, and gasped. News moved quickly now. Push alerts exploded. Orion loses $400 million in global funding. Avery Mitchell severs ties after viral mistreatment clip. Airline loyalty systems under federal review. By the time Avery stood and retrieved his briefcase, half the cabin was staring, not with suspicion, but with recognition. He walked down the jet bridge, not rushing, not reacting. At the gate, a crew supervisor stepped toward him. A younger man, different from the ones earlier. His posture less guarded. Eyes clear. Mr. Mitchell, he said quietly, I'd like to apologize on behalf of the crew. Avery paused, tilted his head slightly. I don't need your apology, he said. Not unkindly. Just clearly. I need to know it won't happen to the next person. He turned and walked on. Outside, a black car was already waiting. A driver opened the door wordlessly. Inside, a Nexus courier sat with a new portfolio. Clean. Dry. Unmarked. Documents replaced and signed, the courier said softly. Zurich board is waiting. Avery nodded once. As the car pulled away from the terminal, he looked back just once and saw something he hadn't seen on takeoff. Awareness. It wasn't just a company that changed that day. It was the lens, the assumption, the calculus of who deserves a seat and who owns the plane. And somewhere in an Orion conference room, an executive read the final line of Avery's withdrawal letter. This wasn't a PR incident. It was a systems test. You failed. Consider this your turbulence. If this story hit you harder than you expected, don't scroll just yet. What moment made you stop and think the most? Was it the meal? The silence? The tag that changed everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your take. And tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Hit that follow if you believe dignity isn't a luxury. Like if you've ever been underestimated. And share this if you think one voice can still rewrite the rules. This wasn't just about one man on one flight. It was about all of us being seen, being heard, and never being moved out of place again. We belong here. All of us.